Um, this is more of Strike Them a Blow from the Civil War Brigade series, The Gamers. I am up to the 8:30 turn. I don't even remember. I think the last video I did was at 7:30. Um, Once you start getting the lines into conflict with each other, you start to the game slows way down. As I mentioned in previous videos, you're rolling 6 dice for every fire combat, and there's going to be defensive combat and offensive fire combat for each unit down the line. I mean, you'll combine fire and stuff like that. Hello, Jordan. Um, so there's not much of a line clashing here now because I've had some pretty big results. You can see some routed Confederate units back here. It's interesting. This is Rhodes Division, and he was attached to the 1st Division and part of Lee's orders to attack the 2nd Corps, the supposedly exposed 2nd Corps. Part of Lee's trap was to get the Army of the Potomac across the river in pieces and pick these corps off one by one. So Rhodes's guys were down here in these trenches, and they swung around and ended up getting just horrible. I think I rolled. All these guys were routed at one point, and I rolled like a 65 or a 66 on the morale rolls for each of them, just on fire combat. This wasn't even like close combat or anything. So fire combat routed those guys back, and I think maybe these two aren't even that damaged. Or 2 out of the 3 aren't very damaged. One of them is. I forget which brigade is more damaged. Probably these guys. They're already down to a B. Looks like these guys are still A's and routed. So it's not a great showing by Rhodes's guys here to be part of Lee's trap. Remember, this is the 4th Division. I guess Tyler's division. Yeah, there's Tyler. They've held their own pretty well against the Confederate attack. The best Confederate unit was this A morale brigade here, and they've, with the rest of these guys routing, they've been left up here by themselves basically to handle, and as you can see, that's whittled them down pretty substantially. In fact, at one point they were surrounded. I actually made the mistake in this case of, I think it was these guys, of attacking them in close combat, and they lost and were able to retreat out from the close combat. They took some fire. Your first text that you retreat into is free. The second one, you're going to take reaction fire. The game doesn't have true reaction fire. It's like an EZOC exit or entry fire. So these guys shot them. So they've just been whittled down. But their A morale means they rarely ever get any stragglers. So it's almost all just pure casualties that have to weaken those guys. But so they've kind of been holding the line for the Confederates, but they're about to break as well. And then at that point, Tyler can continue his attack this way. Although I did just send, because it looked an hour ago in game terms, it looked like the 2nd Corps, they were under these attack orders to attack down here to the Hanover Junction, and that was, it didn't seem like it was going to be very possible. So I kind of started the attack, and then it had Grant issue orders for them to, kind of messed up my stacks over here. Grant issued orders for them to cease the attack and basically fall back to here, whatever this farm is, where the Fox Farm, near where Hancock has his headquarters there. And of course, after I give those orders, then, this wing collapses. This attack wasn't going anywhere, and in fact, up here, you can see all these guys. This is Bernie's division. There's Bernie. This is a completely wrecked division. They just, first of all, these guys were all pretty like D morale level guys. So they're not very good quality anyway, and so as a result, attacking an entrenched position, they got wrecked pretty quickly. So they need to be able to fall back and do straggler recovery. You can see over here, I got some of Burnside's units. He had orders. He finally accepted Grant's orders and extricated himself from his disastrous attempt to force a crossing at Ox Ford here. They got annihilated by these entrenched troops right up by the river. So you can see, and his division his corps is scattered all the way, and they're moving. They had move orders to move to here. The guys that got there first have already started straggler recovery, and the rest of them will be joining there soon enough. And once Hancock accepts his orders from Grant next turn to cease this attack, these guys are all going to fall back as well and create like a defensive position there. But unfortunately, as that was happening, and this is where I was going with this, you can see this isn't Bernie, this is Gibbons' division here. They've cleared out these trenches. In fact, one of the brigades actually took trenches, and these guys were routed and fell back. They lost 3 of their 4 guns, and these guys are down to a C strength already. In fact, this whatever it is, the K division, yeah, it's Kershaw's division, is wrecked. So even if they get back into these trenches, they're going to be prime candidates to get pushed back. And when you're wrecked, I know you can't close combat. Maybe, I don't even know if you can move adjacent to somebody when you're wrecked. I think you can. I think it's only close combat that's restricted when you're wrecked. You can't engage in close combat or initiate close combat when you're wrecked. Regardless, it's going to make it tough for those guys to reoccupy these trenches. And if whoever this is, Brian, yeah. If he wasn't faced by an already wrecked Bernie there, he would be suddenly at risk of getting pushed out of the entrenchments there as well. Not sure. I think Wofford should be up here. So, as is usually the case in a Union assault on an entrenched position, I've been to a lot of battlefields over the years, and so many times on Union battlefields you'll read these plaques that say, oh, thus and such brigade reached this point but then was unsupported, broke the enemy line and reached this point but then was unsupported and had to fall back. Like, just plaque after plaque of Union along Union battle position says, oh, they reached this point and then were unsupported and had to fall back. And it's kind of what's happened here. Like, oh, they've carried the trenches, and then orders come through, retreat, withdraw. So, I could have Grant frantically send another, a countervailing order to Hancock to not withdraw, but, Hancock's a good enough commander. The likely result is that he's going to accept that order this next turn. It would take yet another turn for Grant's new orders to arrive. Then you'd already have these guys pulling back and the Confederates advancing. You'd have a turn for the Confederates to get back into these entrenchments. So it's just the nature of the game when you're dealing with written orders, which of course is one of the great things about this particular system. So this is where most of the fighting has been over here. That's slowed the game down significantly. The big problem for the Confederates is, and this would have been much worse for Hancock if Lee had been able to get his orders to Ewell off here, but Ewell has been sitting in, he got like a distorted result for the first orders, so they had to be reissued. and then he's in D2 status. But these guys, his whole core was supposed to drive right through this gap and smash into Hancock's core, and that would have been, I think, enough to crack Hancock's core, because it likely would have wrecked Barlow's division here, which is basically holding the center of the Union position here by itself. Birney's already wrecked division would be worthless, and Tyler is over here on this trying to do this flanking move, so he's too far out of position. But fairly unfortunately for the rebels, Ewell, who's a 1, and Lee, who uncharacteristically is also a 1, because by noon he's going to be out of the game entirely because he will be violently ill. So that's why he's a 1 in this game, is because he was not at his command best. He'd set up this big trap to spring on the Union, and it didn't get sprung. So unfortunate for the Confederates there, because I think that would have been the exercise of the trap if Ewell had been able to get his corps into that attack on Hancock. Over on the other side of the line here, these guys, it's turned into an artillery duel at the moment, because the Union is mostly moving into position here. The 6th Corps was moving along in their orders to support the attack of the 5th Corps, and the 5th Corps had to stop and take Knoll Station back there, which I left with a very low morale Union brigade, just in case these Confederate troops over here screening the river crossings got frisky and tried to take back some victory points. But the 5th and 6th Corps, the 6th Corps largely in position, but the 5th Corps is still moving up, and so while the 5th Corps has been moving up, the 6th Corps has waited and done an artillery duel on the Confederate position here, and been able to knock out, I think, 2 Confederate guns at this point. So they've had some success on the artillery side of things, which is good, because they're not going to have all that much success when they attack these entrenched positions, which they're going to do, because that's what their orders are. And I need to get, that's my stronger side of the Union position, my stronger attack for the Union. So they do need to make some kind of headway into this Confederate 3rd Corps trench line. Whether they will or not, we shall see. So that's where it stands right now at 8:30. Casualties. So one of the, in addition to the record sheets, where you're marking off your casualties, you also track them here to track your overall casualties. Unfortunately for me, and this goes the same, you track artillery ammo there too, probably in the next hour or two, just to see where the casualties are at. But so far, I think the Confederates may have actually taken a few more casualties than the Union at this point. But I may have missed some of the casualties in there at this point. So they're not exactly accurate. And the same thing for the artillery. I'll fire some guns and then realize, oh crap, I forgot to take my artillery ammo off. I mean, each side starts with like 300 ammo points. I think the game goes till 5:30 with the potential for a second day. I don't intend to play the second day. It'll be a miracle if I make it through the first day, just because these games are interesting initially, but man, once you've got everybody shooting, it just gets so slow, and it just takes you, 2 hours to get through a single turn. It's like basically an hour per side per turn at the minimum, once you're into partly because I don't really have, for whatever reason, I've never been able to memorize the charts. The charts don't come easy to me. I can kind of gauge, whether I'm going to hit hit somebody or not when I roll the dice. If I roll snake eyes, for example, it's like, don't even bother looking it up. That's not going to hit. If you're on the 4 or 5 column. But otherwise, you're the other part is you're constantly checking, like evaluating your strength, and then when you're calculating your fire strength, and then you're also evaluating your morale, and whether you're wrecked or not, you have to check that. So you're looking at all these different things, and a lot of it sometimes on the sheet or some combination of looking at the back of your unit. So it just drags. And so after a while, there starts to turn into this opportunity cost of, do I want to spend 2 hours getting through another half of a turn? I'm still in the morning turn at this point. I mean, the sun's barely up at this point, and I've been playing this I've had this set up since Thanksgiving. So, although I don't think I started playing until maybe 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. So it's been up for a month, basically. And I've made it through, let's see, 2, 3. So I'm in the 6th turn, so I feel like it's moving faster than the Shiloh game did. Maybe because the large stretches of this actually didn't have a lot of people shooting at each other. Indeed, over here on this whole side of the battlefield, there hasn't really been much shooting at all until this artillery duel started. So that makes things move faster. The movement is really simple in the game. Movement and formation changes and all that stuff are very simple. It's just the fire combat is very, very cumbersome and time-consuming. So anyway, that's where we're at. I just thought I'd run through another video and chat a little bit about the game. So thanks for watching.